Hey everyone, I just finished part 3 of the ground crack, and in this video I want to show you how I've created a couple textures for it. So as you can see here, I disabled the ground crack animation, and we have this cast and a hit to the ground, and we're gonna be creating those textures in Substance now. So I hope you're gonna enjoy this one. I'm just gonna try to fit as many textures as possible. I think there's 3 in total, so we're just gonna go through all of them in one video. So that would be the first one we're gonna do. I usually use this on some sort of a lens, maybe just for a quick flash. However, I just wanted to add a bit more complexity to the texture and to have a couple lines just for the just to design it a little bit differently than the normal lens. So let me navigate to some empty space. I'm gonna grab shape first. I'm gonna scale it on one of the axes, and I'm gonna plug this into the tile sampler. However, it's just gonna go to the pattern input. In here, I'm gonna select pattern to be this pattern input, and for the amount, I'm gonna take that one to 1, and that one maybe let's keep it maybe at 8. I'm gonna navigate where the scale is here. Okay, so we can increase the random on this axis, and on that one we're actually gonna plug it 3 there. And here we got the position random as well, so I'm just gonna get something that has plenty of those in the middle, and I think now I can just go up maybe and increase the X amount of those as well. I'm gonna grab another shape, and this time it's gonna be this soft circle, and I'm gonna use a blend and try to create mask with that soft circle. Next, I'm gonna go for transform 2D, and if you press Ctrl and Shift, you can actually take the both ends and scale them inwards. For the tiling, I'm just gonna disable it, and we essentially have something like this now. I'm gonna take it and run it through blur. I think default settings might be okay. Maybe I'm gonna scale it down to something like maybe 4. Oops, not 44, 4. Because I want to have a nice outline for those lines. I'm gonna blend them together. I set it to add, or you can do max if you want. I'm gonna use add. Another thing, you can run it through auto levels if you want to brighten this up a bit, but this time it needs to go to the top slot, and in here now you can play with this opacity if you want just a bit of this data there. And now let's go back to the blur. I'm actually gonna increase it so we're getting nice glow around it. Okay, with those now I'm just gonna blur it a little bit, so that will be maybe value of 0.5. I'm gonna add another blur just so we can have a slightly better outline of it, and I'm gonna actually put high value there, like something like 30, and I'm just gonna blend those together again, and I'm gonna use maybe this time max. And because this one goes to the top now, I can control it with opacity and decide how much of this glow I actually want. So now let's go back to the beginning where we have our tile sampler, And as you can see here, we can just reduce the number of those if we want and play with the position random as well. It's gonna keep our glow and everything else that we've made. So I'm just gonna keep it like this. I'm gonna get a transform, press space here just to see if it's bleeding into the other side of the texture. It doesn't, so I'm just gonna delete that one. Press space again to disable the tiling. And now we can play with a couple things. First will be the blur. So if you want to adjust a little bit of the glow, you can manipulate that one slider now. And another thing would be maybe with this one additional glow. Okay, as you can see, I'm going to increase it and we're getting glow popping in this area now. Okay, so that one's very basic, very simple as well. But it just gives me a good exercise to go back into Substance, try different designs with this and export those as a one texture. Right, anyway, so that's the first one. Let's now create another one. Another one will be this flash. I just colored it with a gradient map, and this is how it looks with the as a grayscale. I'm usually using this as just a quick flash to grab player attention and to indicate like something might be happening in this area. And this time I want to experiment with the various warps and to see if that might be usable for the cast spell that I did for the ground crack. So let me go into empty space again and let's start it from scratch. So I'm gonna grab shape, and this time it's gonna be this soft circle. However, I'm just gonna scale it on one of the axes because I want just a maybe weird ratio for that texture. I'm gonna plug it into the tile sampler again, to the pattern input. I'm gonna select the pattern input here, and I'm just gonna experiment with the numbers, maybe 8 by 8. And I'm gonna put some random scaling there as well. Oh, sorry, let's bring back scale to 1. Okay, we can also experiment with those random scales. I'm gonna go to position and make it fully random. And I'm just gonna scale those up like this. I think we got too many of them, so I'm just gonna go to the top and maybe go with 5 by 5. Because I want only some of them gathered in the middle, ideally. So let's go to position random. Like this. We can also experiment with maybe a random rotation and maybe color random as well, so we get a variation for the intensity. Okay, let's multiply this. Actually use blend, and I'm gonna go for shape, and I'm here just gonna go for this soft circle, but I'm gonna scale it down a bit. And that will be my multiply. Next, I'm gonna go for warp. And in here, I'm gonna warp it with Perlin noise, just to distort this texture slightly. It will be fairly low value, maybe 0.2 or even, let's go with maybe 0.3, but I'm gonna scale back down this Perlin noise. Okay, now we can go back here, maybe increase its value to something like 0.7. And next I'm gonna use splatter circular, and that one needs to go to the pattern input 1. I'm gonna delete this. Let's pick this pattern and let's just play with the values. So I'm gonna go where my scale is, scale it up on one of the axes as well, so it's a bit more dominant, that scale on this axis. Put some random values as well. Okay, let's maybe keep this default. A radius, a random, maybe 0.2. I'm just putting some random values first to see what this node does, and just to see if I can actually use it for something. For the amount, I'm just gonna go with 5, because I'm trying to create this circular flash that goes outwards. Okay, so that's what I've got so far. Let's increase the size of it to something like this. Scale random as well. And I think I'm going to increase its radius just slightly so it sits a little bit outside of the center. I'm going to press space to see how it tiles, and if it does bleeds to other side of the textures. I'm going to warp it again, so ideally I'm just going to keep this, copy paste, plug this one in. However, this time maybe I'm going to increase slightly scale and put some disorder there as well. Okay, I'm going to blur it. I just need a slight blur, maybe a value of 1. I'm going to get auto levels as well. And next, I'm just gonna use a slope blur with the soft circle from shape. I'm gonna increase the samples. As you can see, kind of stretches that texture slightly and gives us really nice blurry look. So I'm gonna run it with the transform before the slope, and then I can just drag this texture down slightly while holding Ctrl and Shift. But I need to disable tiling in that transformation node. And now I can control the intensity of that slope blur, so it doesn't bleed into the edges. Okay, so that will be one of the components. Next, I'm just gonna move this a little bit so I know this is just a one component. I'm gonna keep working with that texture. So next, I'm gonna actually copy this, paste it here. However, with our slope, I'm gonna go into negative values. So I'm gonna maybe put -10. So just to show you what it does, it actually goes inwards, like that. Okay, next I'm just gonna grab this slope blur again with the same settings. However, I'm just gonna keep the intensity to maybe a low value, something like 5. Okay, so that's our first slope. I'm gonna blend it with our original texture. So blend, and that goes here. I'm gonna try different values, but I think I'm just gonna keep there. And maybe max. Yeah, I'm gonna keep it a max. So I'll go just, let's compare them if they actually add anything. So you can see we're adding a bit more data to the center. I'm not sure if it's needed, to be honest, because we might not notice it. However, I'm just gonna do it anyway because I've been doing it in the past and it gives me really good results. However, if you compare two textures, you can see I'm not sure if it's actually needed. So it's something you to decide. I just wanted to show you as well that you can actually use the slope blur with the negative values to give you slightly different looks in case you need a bit blur that goes inwards. Okay, so that's what we've got. I'm gonna blur it because I want to create a nice glow around it. And I'm gonna blend it back in to the texture itself. Here that will be maybe value of sorry, I'm gonna select maybe max. Yeah, so that's gonna blend nicely. We got this glow now. What else we could use? Okay, so I'm just gonna put maybe -20 intensity, so we get those blurry lines going inward. And next, let's combine it with this one. So blend, and that will be a max as well. I'm gonna create gradient just to preview it how it might look with the colors. And next I'm just gonna put here a slightly brighter color. I think I'm just gonna reverse the order because I want the orange one to be behind it, behind that bright yellow. Okay, so we got yellow and then we blend into the orange color. Okay, so a couple of things I don't like, and actually this gives me really good opportunity to work on those areas that might be problematic, as you can see here. So let's see if we can fix it. I'm gonna go way back where we have our tile sampler, try to shift it slightly with the position random, and to see if I could get slightly better and more interesting shapes. So if you need more details, you can just keep it like this. But as you can see here, we kind of get this bleed edge from our, or cut line from our slope. So that might be something that you have to fix it as well. I'm just trying to pick something that might work. So I quite like this. We got plenty of those details here. So I'm just gonna keep it. And let's see if we can increase our warp or decrease it if it's gonna help us. So I think for a bit more kind of liquid details, I'm just gonna increase it maybe to fully 1. And another warp. Yeah, I'm just gonna keep it maybe high value 0.9. I'm gonna blur it as well just to see what it does. So that's super sharp, and maybe value of 2 might be good. Okay, I don't need that one anymore, so I'll delete it. For the inwards value, let's see. So if I'm gonna zero it, you can see what it does. So our texture literally starts from here. However, with the minus values, it feels like I could extend those edges inwards, and I think it's just adds a little bit movement there, but I wouldn't be obsessed about it. It's just, you know, just a tiny little detail that you might not need in the end. Okay, that's the glow. Let's see. Yeah, I definitely want some glow there. And kind of gives me opportunity to experiment with different colors as well, but mostly I use the gradient map to see if there will be any issues with the texture. So I think that looks slightly better for the lens. So I'm just gonna keep it like this. If you need a slightly different shape, you can just go back and tweak some of the values. But I'm just gonna go with that one. All right, so that's the second one done. And now let's create a last one. So the last one's gonna be this one. As you can see, it looks like a distorted circle, and I'm usually using it with combination with the other textures that we've done already. I showed you in the beginning of this video, those 3 actually make this ground crack cast and impact as well. So let's maybe create that one. I'm gonna navigate to some empty space. As you can see, I got plenty of textures in my library. I'm gonna use shape. I'm gonna use disk. I'm gonna scale it down slightly. Duplicate this and maybe blend those 2 together with the subtract node, because I just need an outline. So subtract. And with this one, I'm just gonna scale it up slightly. Okay, gonna blur this with the value of 1. I just wanna hide those very sharp edges. And next, I'm gonna use slope blur grayscale, and for the slope, I'm gonna, not sharpen, I'm gonna go for shape, and I'm gonna go for this soft circle. I'm gonna increase the samples. However, I'm just gonna go to the negative values, maybe -10. Okay, maybe something like this, I think. I'm gonna decrease the samples actually to see what else could it do. Okay, not much, maybe different mode, let's try. So I think the max gives me really cool results. So I'm just gonna maybe go with -36 on intensity, and I'm just gonna blur it to get rid of the stepping that we had. So I'm gonna go for minimal blur just to get rid of the steppings. Okay. Right, so we've got this. Let's maybe get rid of some of the outline. So I'm gonna just copy that one, duplicate it here, and blend it with the subtract option for the blending modes. Right, so I just wanna increase this, and now I can have full control over how much of this edge I actually want. I think that should be enough. I'm just gonna blur it slightly to get rid of the sharp edge there. So value of 1 should be enough. What I don't like is this middle bit. We can clearly see there is a circle, so we could just try to blend it again with the shape of that soft circle. And we can use the subtract here. So let me pick the soft circle. Okay, and now I'm just gonna slightly decrease its size. But it doesn't give me like a really cool blend. It just erases the other data. So do you know what? Let's just go with this, with what we have, and maybe we could figure out this later. Or maybe let's go to the slope blur and try to increase it even further. Okay, so if you're gonna actually decrease it to something like -80, we're kind of getting rid of it. Just make sure you don't decrease it too much, because you're gonna create this weird stepping here, like a crosshair. All right, so -80. So now we minimize that one, and now maybe let's try to actually distort it. But I think this outline is still too big, so let me actually change that one. Okay. I'm gonna use warp. And for the distortion, I'm just gonna use, let's go with this texture. I'm gonna rotate it, get rid of the smoothness. For the X amount, I'm actually gonna go with 1 and start decreasing this value. Okay. Actually, I think we need smoothness. I'm gonna max it to 1. And I'm gonna turn that into a shape mapper. For the shape mapper, I'm gonna get rid of the radius just to 0 it, max the width to 1. And for the pattern amount, I'm just gonna go with 1. I'm gonna use transform, grab one end, press Ctrl and Shift, and just scale it up. Okay, next I'm gonna run it through blur, and that goes into the warp. And for the warp, I'm just gonna put maybe 10 into my intensity to see what it does. And as you can see, we are able to distort our texture. So now I think the tiling might be an issue. So let's experiment with the tiling settings. So here I'm just gonna set it to no tiling. We still got some, and maybe here I'm gonna do the same. Okay, we still got some issues. So another thing might be to grab a transform before we plug this into the warp and scale this transform down slightly. No, because we're still getting the bleed. Okay. I'm gonna grab the warp maybe and decrease it. But even if I decrease it, we're still getting the bleed that goes there. Okay, shape mapper, what about if we change the radius or width? Nope. And nope as well. Okay. Alright, so I'm just gonna distort it slightly. Let's go here, maybe get rid of the tiling from that one as well. I think I've done it before, and one of those actually tiling issues kind of fixed it. Or maybe I just got lucky with my settings, I'm not sure. Okay, so what you have to do is just get a transform here, get rid of the tiling from that transform. So as you can see, I've been close, however I just miss this step to disable tiling. And while having the transform selected, I can press Ctrl and Shift and just scale this down slightly. As you can see, our bleed's starting to disappear. So I'm just gonna leave it like this without any bleed on the edges. I think it might be a little bit too much for that warp now, as I just need slightly. And also you can just go back here maybe to that one, increase it or decrease it if you want, and the amount. Play with this if you want, but I'll just skip it. Smoothness. So I think playing with smoothness might give us maybe sharper results. Okay, and grayscale, sorry, blur. As you can see, it's gonna create slightly more distorted edges. Right, so I'm just gonna keep maybe something like this, and let's keep adding stuff to it. So first I'm gonna need some glow. So I'm gonna go for blur, increase this, blend it together with the max settings, I think. There you go, we're getting some blur now. I'm gonna use the same thing actually with the blur for the slope. So slope, I'm gonna get my shape, which is the soft circle. Max the samples and play with the intensity just to get that closer to the edges. And I'm gonna blend this back in to our main texture, to the top slot, because I wanna manipulate the intensity of it. So that will be set to max. Let's try add as well. I think add's gonna give us slightly better results. So I'm gonna keep it maybe with add. And I'm gonna just add slight glow to it rather than full, and I'm just going to use blur as well to get rid of very sharp edges from that texture. Okay, last, I'm just going to have another warp with the Perlin noise. I just want to distort it slightly on top of our other distortion. Okay. I'm gonna get gradient as well, and actually we can use the one that we've made with the previous texture, that one maybe. And as you can see, we're kind of getting really cool wave or shockwave that we could use in a simple texture. Obviously you can just distort that texture on top in game engine over time with the panel node. It's gonna add a bit more detail to it and just a slightly better movement. Like, let's experiment with the color just slightly. Maybe at the end we can add some reddish color, maybe slightly darker. And I think now we're getting really cool transition from very bright white, yellow, orange, and then to the red. Okay, so that's it. All three textures in one video. Let me actually know if you prefer to work on those as one video, or is it better to just separate them in the different videos. I think it's just a nice exercise to go through all three of those at the same time, but personally, but obviously it's just a personal choice, so if you prefer them to be in a separate video, please do let me know, and next time I'll just separate them. Alright, thank you so much for watching.